Okay, hi everybody. This is Dennis from the Inner Calm. I'm talking today with Ben Sweet from Calgary in Canada. Hello, Ben.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi. Well, I met Ben, actually just a week or 2 weeks ago, and Ben has an amazing story about his anxiety that he had and how he overcame his anxiety. And I thought that was a pretty nice and good story to hear for all our followers from the Inner Calm. And that's why I asked Ben to have a little chat and have an interview about his story and how he did it and how he helping other people to overcome their anxiety. So, yeah, Ben, well, nice here that you're here and nice to chat with you. And can you tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure, you bet. Yeah, I'm happy to be here too. And honestly, any opportunity I have to kind of spread the word and be able to help people to create that change is a pretty big deal because I mean, anxiety it's thick, you know. It's like I tell people. I always talk anytime I talk about it. I always tell people like for me, it was literally like it's like swimming in pudding or swimming in mud. Like you can't get any traction. It's so hard to get yourself out, and it's just you feel like you're always in it, you know. And there might be times when you feel like you kind of pop out, and then it kind of sets back in on you, and it's horrible. Probably the hardest and worst thing I've ever gone through in my life, and you know, I would never wish it upon my worst enemy. So I don't have any enemies, but you know.
I'm sure a lot of people that are listening and watching right now recognize a lot of the stuff that you just said.
Yeah.
I know a lot of them are feeling that right now.
Yeah. I can promise you, you're absolutely right. So, so for me, the interesting thing is, you know, it started in my late 20s. So I had switched career. I made a pretty big life change around 27. I made a career change. I got into a more serious relationship. I had, you know, made a move. So there were many things that were happening, kind of all in one time frame. Now, I don't know if that specifically was the beginnings of it, but right around that time frame, I just remember the very first morning that I ever could put my finger on the fact that I was experiencing anxiety, and I was asleep, and I had just bought a cell phone because for the new work that I was going to be doing, I needed one, and again, this was, you know. This was well over 10 years ago now. So cell phones were not as big at the time. But anyway, the cell phone was kind of across the apartment. And I remember waking up, just waking up like that to the sound of the cell phone. And my guts were in knots. Like my stomach was it was just like bulletproof. It was so hard. And I just remember just kind of like feeling that tenseness, that anxiety. And I was like, what's going on here? Why do I feel this? And just that gnawing feeling in my stomach, it was just horrible. It was horrible. Like I felt uncomfortable. I felt a little bit queasy. I felt really scared and nervous and just super tense. And I had never experienced that before. I mean, I had experienced fear before, and I had experienced, you know, maybe times of heightened fear or a little bit of panicky kind of stuff when I was a kid, possibly. But I never experienced it like that as an adult, ever. And I've done lots of things that many people would consider to be, you know, extreme sports or anything like that. I did lots of climbing and, you know, high-speed downhill mountain biking and, you know, lots of different mountain sports and things. And never really had any issues with it other than kind of keeping normal fear in check. It was never really an issue for me. And I never really had a lot of stress at work or anything. But all of a sudden that morning, that was the very first morning I could honestly say, wow, okay, this is anxiety. I didn't really know exactly what it was at the time. But shortly after, I clued in pretty quickly as to what was going on because it started to grow, it started to take over. And then, you know, I think it was maybe a couple of mornings, you know, a month I would wake up like that. And then I noticed I was kind of feeling a little bit stressy, a little bit nervous throughout the day. And then over a period of probably about 6 months, it started to get worse. Like I noticed that I started to have I started to feel more nervous. And then of course my confidence kind of started to come down a little bit.
Yeah.
And at the time I was doing a lot of meditation, and that didn't really seem to be making a difference for me. And it didn't seem to be creating much change in that way. I noticed that it would calm me down, but it wouldn't really do too much to really help me. So, and then over a period of about a year, 2 years, it just continued to get worse and worse and worse, to the point where I was experiencing anxiety all day, every day. And I'm sure I was experiencing it all night as well, because I mean, I would lay down to go to sleep, and like I'd just be vibrating, just vibrating. And I hadn't even had a panic attack at this point. But I would feel anxious at night, because I was scared I wasn't going to have good sleep. And then I would wake up feeling anxious in the morning, and I'd be anxious all day long. And I mean, it was horrible. Like, it was just really, really bad.
Sounds horrible.
It was terrible. Like, it really, really was. And then probably maybe about a year later, I think it was, I had a panic attack on an airplane. It was the first time. So I was flying up to Alaska from Calgary. So the flight path roughly is Calgary to Vancouver, which is about a 1 hour. You go through U.S. Customs there, long waits in the airport. And then we had about a 4-hour flight up to Anchorage, and then a 1 hour flight, about a 1 hour, and then another 1 hour flight down to Juneau, which is where we were going. So it happened on the way as we were leaving the Vancouver airport. We were taxiing out, and I was sitting on the airplane, and the seats were open, and I was in the exit row, the emergency exit row. So I had tons of space, literally. I mean, I had an extra seat in front of me. There was so much room. And then same thing right beside me. And my partner was sitting next to me. She was right there with me. And so we're waiting and waiting. We're literally sitting in the plane for about 45 minutes waiting to take off. But the door was open, and we were just kind of waiting for some people. I don't know about you, but when was the last time the plane ever waited for you, right? Never.
Never.
Anyway, so we're sitting there waiting, and I noticed that I was starting to, I have these waves of feeling uncomfortable. And I one moment I'd feel kind of warm, I'd feel a little hot, and then I'd kind of calm down a little bit and start to get impatient and a little bit kind of antsy, and not a big deal. And let me tell you, first, Dennis, I have traveled a lot. So prior to my first ever panic attack, I mean, I had been to, I don't know, like maybe 10 or 15 countries around the world. I've done a lot of backpacking. I've done adventure travel in different parts of the world, lots of third world traveling. I've spent, days on days in a row on, tight buses. Small spaces were not really a problem for me. Flying was never an issue. I kind of enjoyed it, like get onto the airplane and just kind of get all snuggled in. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. I could read a book. I could fall asleep. Who cares? Like, do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I kind of enjoyed the coziness of it. Well, that all changed after that day. I mean, that first panic attack happened, and it felt like my head was split open and someone dumped like club soda into my head. Like, everything was just firing. My skin was prickly and itchy and hot. And I was like, immediately I was like, I got to get out of here. Like, I got to go. And something was really wrong. Like, something is wrong with me. There's something wrong with this. Something bad is about to happen. Something really, really bad. And that was it. That was my first ever panic attack. I didn't get off the plane because we were taxiing. So I stayed on the plane, and anyway.
Did you know what to do?
What's that?
Did you know what to do, or what did you do?
No, I didn't know what to do. I just tried to calm myself down, and luckily there was someone that had a little bit of medication that I took that kind of helped me out. I think it was some Valium or diazepam or something like that, and that kind of helped to calm me down. But then we got to Alaska, and I'm like, holy shit, like, how do I get home now? I mean, we're not even where we need to be. There's 3 legs to this trip, and I'm only done the first 2. I can't get back on a plane right now. So went and grabbed a hotel, and anyway, the next day I ended up getting myself back on the plane, and then figured out, I don't know how I even got home, but I ended up getting myself back home. And then about 3 months later, I was supposed to get onto another airplane for a trip. And I couldn't do it. I got to the airport and I just couldn't get myself on the airplane. I was supposed to be flying to Hawaii for a wedding, and it's about a 7-hour flight. And just the thought of being on an airplane for 7 hours and flying to an island where I couldn't just get in a car and drive home, I was in the airline, just nervous, just freaking out. Anyway,
so you started before you were on the plane or at the airport. You started worrying before, and you couldn't do it.
Yeah, just there's no way. I just couldn't. I was way too nervous. And at that point, I even had some emergency medication, like I had some Ativan that I was going to take in the event of, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to take the pills. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just, I won't take them, but I'll just take them if I need to. And anyway, so I didn't take them. I didn't get on the airplane. I drove, I got picked up. I went back home, and I just felt so ashamed, so much shame. Like I just, it was horrible. Like I can't remember ever feeling so bad in my life. I was so beat down and ashamed, and again, confidence level, boom, boom, like even lower down, feeling really bad about myself. And anyway, so I didn't book any vacations for a long time. And then I started to experience panic attacks. I had another panic attack when I was out in traffic, which wasn't a big deal. Which was a really big deal, because part of what I did for a living was based on being able to drive around the city that I live in. And I live in a city of 1 million people, 1.2 million. So, I mean, there's no shortage of traffic. That's something that's going to happen. And so I started to avoid traffic. And then I had one that happened at a stoplight. So then I avoided stoplights. When I say avoided, I mean I would do anything to not be in traffic. So much so that I would put all of my appointments into the evening. I wouldn't go driving during the day. And then I got to the point where all of a sudden I didn't really feel comfortable leaving the house. And it took a lot of effort to leave the house. And one day I was halfway around the block from my house, like literally one block. It was probably about a 6 or 7 minute walk. And I was on the other end of the block, and all of a sudden I just had a panic attack right there in the middle of the sidewalk. And I just started freaking out. And it was like, I don't know how I'm going to get home. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I'm 3 minutes walk from my house. What do you mean you don't know how you're going to get home?
Yeah.
Like, you're right there. And in that, not that moment, but later that day, I had a big realization that what was going on was not the least bit rational. And it wasn't that it didn't make sense, but it was irrational. So these feelings that I was having were completely irrational. And they weren't just fears, it was phobia. Like, they were like fears to the nth degree, right?
Yeah.
Things that I just was pushing away from, and that continued to get worse and worse and worse. And I didn't, there were times when I would go days and days and days without even stepping outside my house. And things got really, really bad. My self-care started going down. I was eating really poorly. I was smoking a lot, drinking a lot of coffee. And I got sick. Like, things got worse and worse and worse. And then finally one day, a buddy of mine said to me, a close friend, he said, "Hey, do you want to come on this skidoo trip? We can go skiing and snowboarding off these skidoos. We'll go in the mountains. It'll be so much fun." And I'm like,
yeah,
I can't go. I can't get myself to be that far away from my house. I just can't do it. And he said, okay. He said, but you got to figure your stuff out, man. He's like, this has gotten really bad. And then again, I had another.
How long from the beginning? This is 4 or 5 years later from the first time?
Probably maybe 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, maybe 3 years.
Okay.
I think about 3 years.
Long time.
Yeah.
Pretty long time.
Yeah, and it just kept getting, like I said, it kept getting worse. And anyway, so eventually that was kind of a really pivotal day for me, because after that phone call, I hit a new low, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I refused to do medication. I didn't want to do all these other things. And I was like, I don't think therapy is going to help me. I had been doing some therapy. It wasn't really helping. It would make me feel good for the day, and the next day I'd go right back to normal. So it wasn't changing anything. And I think actually at that point I had tried a couple of different medications, and they made me feel suicidal. Like all of a sudden I was just like, ah. And so I was like, I can't take these anymore. It makes me feel too crazy. So I didn't want to do that either. And I just felt like there were no options for me. Ultimately, what happened was at that moment in that day, I just kind of sat down and I said, okay, today, I said, things can't get any worse from here. I can't let them get worse. I have to start making changes. I have to create the change that I need to create because things are pretty out of control. And so I sat down and I started writing out the things that were working and writing out the things that I had done in the past that had worked for me anytime I had difficulties and challenges. And I wrote down all the different ways that I could get help, and I started doing research. And ultimately, I ended up creating a system, a very specific method that took me it probably took me about 2 years to really kind of perfect it. Another 2 years before I was at a place where I was feeling really good. And of course, my friends were like, wow, what are you doing? Like, you're like the old you again, like what's happened? And I've always been a really energetic, boisterous, fun, adventurous kind of guy, and pretty easygoing as well. And also like really patient. I've always been an extremely patient guy. But when the anxiety came in, I mean, I lost all of my patience. I couldn't be patient. It was not within me to be able to sit and be patient at all. Like I lost it. Like so much stuff I lost. All of these inner characteristics and traits, they just disappeared. They weren't there anymore. And I always tell people it's like a spell. It's like anxiety is like the spell that gets cast over top of your life, and it just makes everything horrible. Just
take all the emotions away as well.
No control over that at all. No control. And I mean, it kills relationships, it kills careers, physical health, mental health. Like, I don't think there's any one particular area that it just doesn't destroy. Anxiety destroys everything it touches. And it's horrible.
Because some people don't understand that it's not only mental but also physical that it will have effect on. So
true.
Yeah.
So true. So it took me some time. I did a lot of trial and error, and ultimately got myself out. The reason it took the time it did was because I was creating this method as I was doing it.
Yeah.
And of course now I've created an entire system around it, and I've got a community of people that I work with that I help. We've got free resources. We've got paid resources. I've got a course. There's group coaching. There's all kinds of different stuff. And the reason why I've devoted so much of myself and my time to this is because, I mean, you've probably done some research around it, but the numbers of people globally who struggle with anxiety is phenomenal. In the United States alone, they say it's 1 in 4 people. 25% of people have experienced anxiety or do experience anxiety. I mean, 1 in 4, that's I can't even put my hand, like that's close to 100 million people in the United States alone.
Yeah.
That's insane,
That's really crazy.
Mind-boggling. So what else can I tell you?
One thing, it's great that you found a system by yourself, by trial and error, and things that worked for you in the past for other things that helped you out of your anxiety and the panic attacks. And I'm sure that a lot of the listeners and viewers right now are very interested in the system that you have and maybe how it can help them. I will put a link underneath this video for the people that want to have a look at your website and at your information, so they can have a look at it and see if it can help them.
Yeah.
And it's great that to hear your story and how you did help yourself actually. And what do you think? It's one of the important things that will help people make the step to come out of their fear and that kind of symptoms. Is there one thing that you say, well, that's the thing that made me decide this is it, I have to do it different?
Great question. So a couple things I'll tell you. One is probably the biggest thing that I would say is, there's a couple of pieces there, okay? So one of the first things is that you have to want it, and that desire to get out of it is something that kind of fuels you to keep taking action to take the steps to actually get yourself out. That's one of the first things.
Yeah.
The second thing is, don't expect and hope and wish and pray that it's going to go away on its own.
Yeah.
Because you're fooling yourself.
Yeah.
You're fooling yourself. I'm really black and white about that. And the reason why is because getting yourself out of anxiety is a step-by-step process. You need to take steps to do that. And sitting around is not going to do it. Watching TV is not going to do it. Having another smoke or a cup of coffee or a beer or another glass of wine is not going to do it. You need to own it. You need to take the steps required to do it, or it's not going away. It's just that simple. And here's the other thing I can tell you. It is shocking how quickly time will go by when you're struggling with anxiety, and you'll be able to look back and go, it's been years. And all of a sudden you'll be like, it's been 10 years. Because I talk with a lot of people on the phone directly, and it's shocking to me the number of people that have struggled for decades, for over decades, specifically that I've been able to help. But the biggest thing is that so much time can go by so quickly without you even realizing it. But here's the most important thing. Anxiety never gives you anything other than trouble and difficulty, but it takes away so much of your life. It steals. It literally steals away your quality of life. It takes away from your ability to do things. And as a result, what happens is that your quality of life is a fraction of what it could be. The life you're supposed to be living is like this much. Absolutely. But when you have anxiety and panic attacks, it's like this. And I was down here. And I got to that point where I was just so crushed down by it. I was like, whatever it is, I got to do something to stop it. So the biggest, that second thing that I would say there is, you must move forward. You must take action. Stop assuming it's going to go away on its own. Do it. Do something. Commit to ending it. Commit to making it happen. And don't expect it's going to go away on its own. You're just kidding yourself. Yeah. And then the third thing I'll tell you is the third big thing I'll tell you is stop coping. Stop coping. In other words, because one of the things that I would do is I would wake up in the morning and I would either do some breathing techniques or I'd do some meditation, and it would calm me down. Yeah. So it would calm me. That's it. But it didn't end the anxiety, because I wake up the next morning feeling the exact same way. And that went on for years. The coping techniques don't end anxiety. They're for coping, not for ending. What you need, if you're struggling with panic attacks and anxiety, are ending techniques. You need ways to end your anxiety. You don't need ways, you need a way, right? And here's the thing, lots of people use lots of different things, but don't place your future, don't place your life, don't place your hope in a bunch of coping techniques. That's a huge mistake, because all of a sudden you're going to look back and go, wow, it's been 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, and I'm still doing the same stuff to cope with my anxiety, but yet I still live with it. So that's a huge mistake a lot of people make. So those are probably the three biggest things that I would say is you really have to want it, right? 2, you have to really do something about it. And you can't hope and pray that it's just going to go away on its own, because it's not. And 3, don't put all your life and your hope and your future into a bunch of coping techniques. You need something that's effective. You need something that's really going to work.
Yeah, well, I think it's some very valuable information for the people that are listening and the followers of Healing Calm. So thank you for sharing for that.
My pleasure. Yeah.
And well, an amazing story, and great that you overcame your anxiety and your panic attacks this way, and also that you're helping others. That's
thank you. And you too. And you too, obviously. When we first connected, I was like, oh yeah, he's a good guy. He's got a good heart. I can tell that he's really cares about, making a difference for people. So
thank you.
Well, thank you, and the more people that are out there, it just creates a bigger support system for people. So it's good. So you're doing good things, and I feel good about doing what I'm doing as well. So
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I will put a link underneath this video for the people who want to see what you do and how you did it, and for more information, so you can click underneath on the link. And yeah, well, Ben, thanks a lot for this interview, and maybe we can have a chat another time.
Sounds great. Yeah, well, I'd love to.
Okay, thanks, well, thanks a lot, Ben.
Appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.